This time on Engine Masters, we're making 1,500 horsepower with a big boost and a stock short block. This is Engine Masters presented by AMSOIL, where this time, this whole shebang was not my idea. We've got special guest here, Richard Holdner, who's like the king of the Big Bang, making huge power on stock LS short blocks. And that dates back to, I think, 2011, right?
Yeah, it goes all the way back to 2011. That first story for Hot Rod Magazine, that little 4.8 that we thought was a 5.3, turned the boost all the way up on the stock short block.
And it made what?
Made 1,208 horsepower, which was pretty impressive back then. And actually, we never broke it. It came off the dyno and was still running.
But ever since then, you've been like the king of go to get a junkyard motor, put a top end on it, and boost it till it blows,
well,
right?
As soon as we do something cool for Hot Rod, then everybody wants to jump in, right? So the truck and magazine guys called and said, can you do the same thing with a 5.3? So we put a 5.3 on, turned that thing all the way up, 1,300 horsepower, which is a big number, but we saved the best for last.
Okay.
Turned back to Hot Rod and said, hey, we want to do it with a 6-liter. So this time we're gonna run 6-liter, same thing, stock short block, heads, cam, and intake, 1,482 horsepower, 28.5
That's
pounds.
with a 6-liter, not a 6.2?
That's a 6-liter.
Okay, and what we're trying to do on this episode is actually beat that record, because you're claiming that's the record for the world's most powerful stock short block, right?
Well, I haven't seen anything, either LS or any of the other engine families, that have made that kind of power on a stock short block. And as you know, all of those were Gen 3 motors. This one is a Gen 4, it's supposed to have stronger rods and a better block, so since we always break the rods on these Big Bang motors,
hopefully this one doesn't.
This thing goes a little bit farther.
So tell me the story. This thing is a stock 6.2 Gen 4 short block. Crank, rods, pistons, everything, right?
Stock 6-liter.
6-liter.
4, yeah, short block, stock crank rods, pistons, but then we added heads, cam, and intake, like all the Big Bang motors.
Okay, so tell me about that power combination. What do you got?
Okay, we've got Trick Flow 225 cathedral port heads, CNC ported Gen X heads, they're awesome. We've got a Stage 3 twin turbo cam for Brian Tooley Racing, designed by the guys at LJMS, because if you have 2 turbos, you have to have a twin turbo cam, right? Right. Topping it all off, we've got the Sniper Race manifold, which the standard manifold is a little bit too thin, so it moves around too much.
Yeah.
This race version, thicker, bolt-on flange.
And looks nicer than their old deal.
It looks awesome, looks like a real deal. It kind of looks like a Hogan sheet metal manifold, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And we're gonna find out how much boost it'll take.
How about Turbskis?
2 Borg-Warner S475s, each good for 1,000 horsepower. So in terms of turbos, we got it covered.
Okay, so Little John Performance hooked you up with that stuff, right?
Yeah, the guys are, John over there is great.
Or Little John Motorsports,
Little
rather.
John Motorsports.
Okay, perfect. So basically, you're now turning me, Brule, and Dulcich loose on this thing, right?
Exactly. We've put a tune in it. We've got a good air-to-water intercooler. We're running good gas in, as we always do. You guys can put it on the dyno, start making wax, and start turning the boost up.
And the thing is, we're gonna be careful with it. It's not like I'm gonna walk in there and dial 27 degrees of timing in this thing. We're gonna actually try and make it live. We're gonna try and make 1,500 horsepower, at least 1,483.
That's all we need.
But then we have your official permission to keep going until parts hit the floor,
yes,
right?
I want to see what the limit is. So if that's 1,483 or it's 1,583 or 1,683, whatever that number is, I want to see it.
Okay, this is gonna be really good. We're gonna go hook it up on the dyno, which takes forever because there's a lot of like science projects going on here, and then we'll AMSOIL the thing up and fire it up and start at like 1,000 horsepower and move from there.
That's a good place to start.
Okay, we'll see you there. Whenever we do one of these deals where we're actually trying to blow up an engine, AMSOIL is always like, make sure they know it's not the oil. And it won't be. Typically, it's a connecting rod that breaks on these. And AMSOIL normally tells me to run the Dominator, sometimes in like a 60 weight, that Dominator racing oil. But Richard didn't want to go there. He had some oil pressure issues with this thing and was playing around with it in pre-testing and went with the 2050. So I'm pouring in the AMSOIL Z-Rod 2050 because it is the 2050 oil that I had in stock. Well, you guys know the deal, right? It's not our engine, so go hog wild.
I feel like you guys decided to go run over somebody's dog and designated me the driver.
Oh no, for some reason when we put nitrous on the 305, I felt like I was shooting a puppy. This, I don't care. So really? It's a complete junkyard short block, stock crank, rods, pistons, even the rings are stock. But he did go take it apart and open them up to 30 thousandths ring end gap. Right. Okay. And I think we're doing some other stuff here to actually not intentionally blow the thing up until it makes the number, which is like 1,500 horsepower.
I think whatever that number is, we're trying to keep it alive.
We are.
We're going to go as far as
we're
possible.
going to kill it.
At some point, but we don't want it to be because of the tuna.
Right. We need it to live to 1,500, and so we're doing things like we've got it on Rocket Brand 118 race gas. In the tune-up, he's got timing pulled out of it around peak torque, because that's where the highest cylinder pressure is. That's where the greatest risk of detonation or a head gasket or something like that is.
It probably doesn't even need that right there, but when we were doing some work this morning, just kind of decided that, you know, that was less important than the peak number.
The peak number, which
so
is what
we
we're
get through
shooting for.
there, and hopefully we can make that peak number.
The objective is to get it as far as humanly possible before it just can't take any more.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And at that point, I'm not sure what's going to happen.
And so, I'm bringing it back, boys.
Wow.
This is going to be the highest peak horsepower number on a pass where it survives.
Okay.
So not like a peak number right before parts fall out, but a pass where it survives.
Hey, Freiberger, can you peel off another 20 for me? And
No.
I'll take it off your tab.
So, here. I'm giving you guys. Are we doing prices right, or are we doing just plain closest?
Closest.
Closest, even if it's over.
Yeah, you know, if it goes over, everybody wins on that one. So.
Yeah. Dulcich?
You bumped
Well,
the
I don't
bet.
have anything smaller than 100. This is not the $5 table.
No, and I don't know that we're sitting here thinking we're all high rollers or something. What are you pressing things like that for?
He did it, not me.
No, he's the one that peeled off to 20
Yeah,
to
but
kick
you
this
bumped
off.
the bet. Can't you just ante in?
I didn't bump the bet.
Yes, you did.
I did.
You said all you had was 100.
I'm not playing for 100 here. Are you? What? That's all I have.
Did you write down your number?
I don't have a pen. Can I borrow a pen?
No. You don't bring the cash, you don't get a pen. Pens are for closers.
Put that pen down.
All right, baseline pass. We're gonna fire it up, hopefully make about 1,100 horsepower, and then we'll be inching it up probably 2 PSI at a time, making more and more boost for more and more power. And I'd like to actually learn something here. So I would like to keep track of like boost back pressure in the exhaust on the turbo.
Back pressure in the exhaust. We've obviously got boost pressure, air fuel ratio. I mean, we've got probably a bit more data than normal. So
this is for educational purposes. Boom, 1,150 horsepower right off the bat.
That looked pretty effortless.
I know. Turbos are good. So that was 1,150.1 horsepower and 908.6 pound-feet of torque. What was the maximum boost on that run? 16 pounds of boost at peak right there, right at the very, very top. The thing is still climbing in power at 7,000 RPM. We're just sort of shutting it off that point because RPM is a danger. If we get to the point where it's making like 1,475 horsepower, you can bet we'll run more RPM. But for now, 7,000.
16 pounds of boost is nothing. We got a long way to go.
Uh-huh. It'll be really interesting to watch how the boost affects the power. Like right now, we add 2 pounds, it might make 100 horsepower or 50.
Right.
Later on, you add 2 pounds, it might only make, 75 or 40. It'll come down a little bit as the efficiency drops.
They call that the law of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go let Richard look at his baby and see how many turns he wants us to put in it. All right. How much are you gonna go on this step?
I think we'll go up like 2 turns and kind of see where that is. That should give us another couple of pounds, and then you know, each is 30 or 35 horsepower pounds. So
tell everyone about, you know, wastegates, blow-off valves.
All right, well, we've got stainless headers feeding a pair of turbos, because if one turbo is good, obviously two, yeah, twice as good. Each turbo is feeding a single intercooler, but it's a dual core, dual pass intercooler. We've got wastegates for each one of the turbos. Right now they're running on the springs. It's all controlled, and all we got to do is adjust our little bleed valve. As we do that, more boost, more fun, more power.
Explain, though, how the organized leak is going to increase boost pressure.
Okay, well, the way the wastegate works is it's supplied boost pressure. That opens the valve up, that allows exhaust to escape out, and that lowers the boost pressure. If we trick some of that flow by putting a metered leak in it, now it thinks, oh, I'm not getting as much boost, so therefore I have to stay closed longer, so then the boost goes up. So as we keep screwing that thing out, we get more and more leak, more and more boost.
Well, let's make the screw fall out. Also, we got an intercooler going on here with ice water flowing through it, and we're maintaining the ice at every pull. We're like dumping a new bag in, and you're gonna pull some of this water out so we can chill it down.
More ice, less water, more cool, more power. Should we adjust?
You can adjust.
All right.
Step 2, 2.5 more turns. That's it. Go. I don't know what to tell you.
Nothing else to have.
Nothing else.
It's like 1150, so easy. I think we'll go 1200.
1250. Yeah, exactly.
I didn't see the numbers. I was concentrating quite a bit on air fuel.
I was too. I was looking at
1200 and a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Step 2, 17.6 pounds of boost, 1,213 horsepower, 957 pound-feet of torque. Go give it 2.5 more turns. 1.5 pounds of boost on that last run, picked up 63 horsepower. Now we've added more ice, had our eye on the Holley HP EFI to make sure everything's copacetic. Got a few more turns in this thing. This is step 3.
Did you see the torque?
No, I was watching the oil pressure because I knew Steve was watching
it blew
that.
past the 1,000 foot-pounds like nothing.
Easy. What's our peak boost? Now we are at 22 pounds of boost, 1,349.2 horsepower, 1,084 pound-feet of torque.
I guess that last turn and a half worked pretty good.
Yeah.
So we picked up 4.4 pounds of boost in order to pick up 136 horsepower. So
well, it's got some legs left.
It's still tracking pretty nice.
Unless it breaks.
Well, let's step it up.
All right,
There's nothing to think about. It's not like, oh, should we throw 3 jets in it? Do you want to retard the cam? Do a different carburetor? It's just
go turn the screw.
Ready?
I'll sit here while one of you guys handle it.
Okay, relax. I'll handle it. How do you like boost now, Dulcich?
I'm loving it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you?
Can we stop and go put forged pistons and rods in it now?
No.
Why would you do that? Okay, this is going to be step 4, 1.5 more turns on the boost controller. The intake. Okay, well, let's go have a peek at that. Major failure. Wow. I think we can fix it.
All right, this is what happens when you really crank the boost up. Blew the inlet tube off. So we took and welded some seams on here, so it's gonna hold better. So we'll put it back in, get back to dynoing.
This is going to be test 4. So close. 1,432.5 horsepower, 1,196 pound-feet of torque.
That's disgusting.
Ridiculous. What was the peak boost?
26.6.
Wow. We need to literally pick up exactly 50 horsepower to break Richard's record.
We need to go up. Well, it's Richard's record anyway.
Well, it's Richard's motor, it's Richard's everything, but you know.
I'm thinking, what, about 2.5 pounds of boost would get us there?
Last time we picked up 135 horsepower with 4.4 pounds of boost.
I don't think it's quite as easy anymore.
Yeah, exactly. We're now hitting the point of diminishing returns, although they're not fully diminished by any means, but I'm kind of anxious now because we're on the brink.
I know.
It's on us to either succeed or fail. Now's when we're actually kind of getting cautious. We got 1.5 more turns. We only need 50 horsepower, and you're pulling timing at peak torque in order to try and kill that, you know, peak cylinder pressure, make the thing live.
You can't take too much away, but it's down there. It's down there like 15, 16 degrees through peak torque.
Yeah, and you can't make it 10, right?
No.
So, okay, all right. All it needs is 50. Into the 1500s. Sweet.
Yeah.
Nice.
Nice.
We just made 1,500 horsepower on a stock junkyard short block with the ring gaps opened up. Wow. So the final answer on run number 5, breaking the law, breaking the record, 29.2 PSI, 1,543.4 horsepower, and 1,255.6 pounds.
Look how sweet that is.
And it's actually, yeah, looking like it's happy.
It just doesn't look like there's any distress.
It got better.
It's just like, okay. What, you want 16?
So 1543, which is enormous, and we planned on going further and actually blowing this thing up, or at least trying to make 1,600 plus, but we've hit a wall. Here's the problem. We're making 29.2 pounds of boost, which means we are out of map sensor. Map sensor, manifold absolute pressure. And what we've got it on is a 3-bar unit. And 1 bar is what you would consider to be 0 PSI. 2 bar is 14.7, and we are now at the limit of our 3-bar sensor, which is essentially 30 pounds. And so it needs that sensor in order to be able to modify both the fuel curve and the ignition timing in order to not blow itself up if we go to higher boost, and we don't want to blow it up that way. If we're going to blow it up, we wanted to do it with power, not with just a tuning mistake.
We're actually 1/2 pound past the end of the map sensor.
Yeah,
we are just at the top of
officially.
It. Done.
Who could have seen that coming? 4-bar map sensor for a bone stock short block.
Well, the upshot is this thing's still gonna live.
Yeah, it's gonna live, and it made 1,543 horsepower, which these days you're like immune to stuff like that because so many people are making so much power, but that's ludicrous.
See, that's like a double win.
There is one downside.
What?
The envelope, please.
Oh, I know. I had said that our best pass before it blew up would be 1643.
1620.
1532. Finally, Brule wins.
He wins it on a map sensor.
On a technicality.
A total technicality. Oh, man. I feel kind of shafted.
We need to have a rematch someday.
No, we absolutely do. I mean, it's really, for me, it's a triple win.
Why?
New record.
Not cleaning up
Got
the floor.
money. Not cleaning up the floor.
Right, exactly. Okay, well, we're done with you then.
All right.
Let's go find Richard and wrap this thing up. See what he thinks.
1543.
There's just so much. I have a lot of feelings about this, but first of all, thank you for letting us have this story.
Oh, anytime. Hey, a day on the dyno with turbos, that's awesome.
It is. It's pretty amazing. I guess I want to talk about, I don't know, how realistic you think this is and what you think the internet reaction is going to be.
Oh, we know both of those, right? I mean, there's no way it's realistic to put in a car like this because we're trying to.
I had this argument with you once, and you were like, "Oh no, guys are doing it everywhere." But
I would run this. Yeah, at 1,000 horsepower, I think guys go out and run it all the time at that kind of power level.
Yeah.
But when we're trying to get to the breaking point where we're talking about this may last for 1 run or 2 runs, It's just not realistic to go out and try to run it like that.
So what point does it really prove, I guess is the question then?
Well, for me, what I wanted to do when this all started was I wanted to find out what is the breaking point of the motor, like how much is the maximum it can stand. And that's what we did with that first story way back when. So now we wanted to find out what that breaking point was with a Gen 4 version, which we didn't kind of find out. We got to a big number, but we didn't get to the breaking point.
Right.
So I just think we're setting a bar so everybody else can try to achieve that. Not that they're gonna go out and run it, but hey, has anybody else made this kind of power with a stock bottom end?
I don't know, have they? Because that raises the internet question.
Have they? Right? Has anybody done with a Mopar or a big block Chevy or anything?
I don't think so, but you are the king of destruction and we failed to destroy this engine.
I know, everyone's disappointed that it's still all in one piece.
I am kind of, but that gives you another show later on, another story and another internet controversy where they tell you that it's already been done and you're a has-been and everybody else is better than you.
I think that's what's gonna happen regardless of whatever the outcome is. No matter what we do, they're gonna say, oh, guys have already done that or you've already done that or this is a waste of time, because it's the internet.
Well, I thought it was pretty good.
I thought it was awesome. I mean, if you take a look at it, there's no way, like a few years back, how often we would have sat in a room and think, man, it's only making 1,200.
Yeah, I know.
It's only making 1,300. We're so disappointed. And then when you get to a number like that, you're like, that's a huge number, but we're like, I think it's got more. I think it's got more.
So maybe we'll do it again if you want to repeat it with the big block Chevy.
I'd love to do that because I'd like to do LS versus the world. We know what this guy can do, but now we want to find out, can anybody else do that? Like can a 2JZ or a big block Chevy or a Hemi maybe? Can anybody else do that?
So if he actually gets around to that, you'll probably have to see it in a future episode of Engine Masters presented by AMSOIL. What do you think, Dulcich?
I'm wondering how many trout you can get in here.
You can take home a bunch of trout?
Yeah, or, you know, I was expecting to see a couple of bass in that thing.
And we can set our drinks in there later, margaritas, beer, you know, whatever you need.
This time on Engine Masters, you're gonna learn a really cool basic combo for a 450 horsepower 351 Ford, and we're gonna show you the power of a single plane versus dual plane intake manifold. Hey, this is Engine Masters presented by AMSOIL, and if you're a regular viewer, you remember this little guy right here. This is the 351 Ford Windsor that went head-to-head in an earlier episode against a 350 small block Chevy, and the Ford won by like that much. You needed a micrometer to see how much it won by, but it was good enough to earn it a spot on this episode where we're gonna show you the power and tuning differences between a dual plane intake manifold and a single plane intake manifold. I'm going to explain all of that after we get through with the baseline, but first, I just got to tell you about the combination on this engine because we've really fallen in love with it. This is something anybody can assemble, and here's how. Start off with this rebuilt bone stock short block from a company called ATK. You can buy it from Summit Racing. If I recall, it was neighborhood of $1,300 or something like that. You could do it cheaper if you pulled a 351 out of like an EFI Bronco or something and gave it a dingle ball rebuild. It would be pretty much just as good as this. Then we go to the camshaft. Now what we have in here is a retrofit hydraulic roller cam. It would have been a little bit cheaper if we'd used the production Ford roller lifters and hold downs and link bars and stuff like that. The cam is an XE282RF for retrofit. You can also get an XE282HR for the regular camshaft. And it's a good tweener camshaft. It's not too big, it's not too small. And it works okay with the low compression ratio on this thing. It is almost 9.5 to 1. Really, I'd like to see it at about 10.5 to 1, but you can run it on dog water, any kind of gasoline you want. Now we get into the good stuff. The Airflow Research 195cc inlet runner aluminum cylinder heads. You saw us run these things on a 410 cubic inch Ford a while back, and they rocked. They're just as good on this thing. If you're gonna skimp on any part of this program, I wouldn't make it the heads because I think they're the key to how happy we are with the overall power curve. But it has other good stuff. All the way up top, we're starting our baseline with the Edelbrock dual plane Performer RPM air gap intake manifold. We've got MSD ignition. One thing that's really important about picking a distributor on a small block Ford is that Comp Cams in particular has a whole bunch of different camshaft cores made of different materials, and the distributor drive gear needs to be compatible with it. So you need to call Comp Cams if you're buying one of their camshafts and just ask them, what distributor drive gear do I need to use? Now up top, we've got my favorite carburetor, the Holley XP series. This one's 750 CFM, and this is honestly another place where you could probably skimp in this whole program and buy something like one of Quick Fuel Technologies carburetor. One of the lower end Holley double pumpers. You don't need the Super Trick XP, but we love it, as well as our 1 3/4 inch hooker headers. Now we're gonna hang all of this stuff on the dyno, squirt some AMSOIL into it, and once again show you the nice, sweet power curve of this Ford 351 Windsor. Man, I'm just gonna keep talking about how this engine is like a super simple thing that anybody can bolt together, and the key to that is that rebuilder short block. It's just stock stuff, but you know what? This thing is still a pretty good investment. With all new parts from Summit, like intake manifold to oil pan, it's probably about $5 grand. So you wanna take care of it, and you can do that with synthetic oil. You might as well splurge, but the AMSOIL OE line is like their lower priced kind of oil, so you kinda have no excuse not to get some for an engine like this. All right, let's see if I can hit it. I want not one drop on the valve cover, and oh, fail. All right, this should be easy. I have a feeling it's gonna run exactly the same as it did when we did the Ford versus Chevy showdown.
I think that's the right manifold for the engine, honestly.
The dual plane?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Usually I'm a big, tall, single plane guy, but on a street engine, that's probably
Dual
correct.
plane. All right, well, let's fire it up. We already have this thing tuned up. It is in the exact same configuration that it was in that last episode where we ran the Ford versus the Chevy. And so we're just gonna re-baseline it here and see what it does. Okay, so we have a pretty happy curve here. We made 427 pound-feet at 4,100 RPM and a nice spread, 2,000 RPM later at 6,100. We made it 430 horsepower, and it's just a really nice curve. That hydraulic roller is just doing its thing.
Yeah, the rollers have a nice curve, particularly when they have the right spring pressure and all that stuff's put together right.
It doesn't really get much better than that when you look at that.
For a really average engine, I think it's doing exactly what it should be doing.
Yeah, when we look at the torque numbers and stuff particularly, it's exactly where it's supposed to be for this size engine.
Yep, right down the middle of the road. So good enough. Let's go make more horsepower with a single plane.
We hope.
Yeah. You don't think so?
I don't know. I think the RPM's hard to beat.
This thing's gonna make 450.
Sometimes when we're guessing what it's supposed to do, we're wrong.
Oh, I'm confident this time.
This time you're confident?
I have almost 100% confidence.
Well, let's find out. Swap that manifold.
Our 351 runs pretty good, and part of the reason is this. The dual plane intake manifold. Actually, the high-rise, really good Edelbrock RPM air gap dual plane intake manifold. Why is it called an air gap? Well, check it out. If you look, you can see that there's actually an air passage underneath the runners here. They make another manifold that's just called Performer RPM, and it's really the same design but without the air gap passage. And in truth, on the dyno, they run almost exactly the same. These look a little bit cooler. But the important part is the design of what's going on underneath the carburetor right here. You can see that the plenum is divided in two, and there are literally two different planes in here, a high one and a low one. Each side of the intake manifold is feeding a pair of runners on the inside and a pair of runners on the opposite side that are on the ends. And so one side is feeding here and here. The other side is feeding here and here. That makes most of the runners longer. By runner, I mean the sort of passageway here that delivers the air-fuel mixture to the engine. That's called the runner. And if you measured it from here to here, you would find that on average, they are longer than what you'll find on a single plane. Longer intake runners tend to improve low-end power. Shorter ones tend to improve high-end power. An example of that is if you go back and look in like the Hot Rod Magazine archives at the super stock racers of the 60s, the guys who were building altered wheelbase funny cars and stuff. Remember those big, tall injection stacks sticking out of the hood? They did a lot of experimentation with those, running them both really tall and really short to change the shape of their RPM curve and where they were making peak power. In fact, that was the same reason why Chrysler made those big old crazy cross rams and stuff. Well, this is just another more practical way of getting longer intake runners. That's why I like that thing. But I am also a huge fan of the single plane intake manifold. Why? Because these things tend to improve high-end horsepower at the cost of reducing lower-end torque. But as a magazine guy like I was forever, you really like that big horsepower number for your cover blurb, and these things usually deliver. Let's look at why. First of all, it's got this open plenum design, more air volume available to every cylinder of the engine as the pulses and waves of resonance sort of move through the thing. It's a lot of rocket science stuff. It's more better for high RPM. But more importantly, the average length of all of the intake runners is shorter. Remember we talked about how a longer runner makes low-end torque, a shorter one makes high RPM power? That's what this is for in a practical, packageable size. This particular unit is an Edelbrock Victor Jr., which is their line of basic single-plane intake manifolds. They also make like a Super Victor and some even bigger ones than that. The taller the manifolds get and the more the runners are standing up against the port and the more volume they've got inside them, the more they're for a race engine. They can accommodate bigger and bigger displacements, higher and higher RPM. But for an engine like what we're dealing with today, I chose the smallest of them, which is the Victor Jr. Actually, in the old days, there's even smaller ones like the old Tarantula manifolds and things like that, the Torquer 2. Those, unfortunately, are not a great design. If you're shopping for a single plane, I would go directly to a more modern design like this Victor, and we're going to show you right now exactly what the shape of the curves look like as we remove the dual plane and put on this Edelbrock Victor Jr.
This is ready to go. Now the thing of it is this Performer RPM is probably the best intake manifold for this level of engine.
Probably the best intake manifold dual, as far as a dual plane goes, built in the last 30 years.
Yeah, but I don't think this engine really has anything for the single plane. We'll lose torque. I don't think we're really going to pick up much upstairs. Oh yeah. Once you get that hollow sound, you know she's ready to come up. Look at that. And what are you using here as your special sealing sauce?
Permatex Ultra Gray.
You know I'm going to critique your silicone job. So really lay a bead on that you can be proud of. Oh, that's pretty good.
Sweet.
Oh yeah, look at that. This is a single plane intake manifold. It's kind of a higher rise design. It looks way racier. That's why I like it, but it never works as good on the street engine as the RPM. My expectations are that the other manifold is going to be a little better.
It's all dependent upon camshaft and RPM range. It takes a fairly special combination, either large cubic inches or high engine speed to take advantage of the single plane on the street.
Okay, we're gonna fire it up now with the Victor Jr. single plane, and we're anticipating that we're gonna have to retune the carburetor because the signal is gonna be less, and it's gonna pull less fuel, and it's gonna be lean. Were we far enough into it though to actually know?
So, I mean, my sense is that it's probably going to dip down a bit, but I don't think it's going to dip down enough.
It's got 68 squares in it now. What do you want to put in it?
74s.
74s?
74.
Bold. Let's go for it.
Gonna make a move, make a move.
Yeah. Come on, you guys. Am I doing this myself?
You can do it yourself. So what happened is we slapped the single plane on here and we tried to make a first pull, and the engine was running way too lean, even though it ran fine with the same jets with the dual plane. Why, Dulcich?
Signal.
That's it. Explain it.
Well, the single plane manifold is drawing from all 8 runners at the same time, and the way the pulse separation works on a dual plane, it gives a better signal to the booster and it pulls more fuel through the jet and out the booster into the engine. So when we change the manifold, we also have to change the jet.
Short version, the dual plane sucks harder on the carburetor, and therefore it pulls more fuel out of the booster with the same jet than a single plane would.
So we've got 74s in it now. Should be a lot better. I think the single plane might actually be better now.
Well, it's gonna make more horsepower.
Yeah, I was kind of doubting it, but while we were changing manifolds, I kind of bonded with it.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, look how great it looks.
Go. Pretty good. It made more peak torque than the dual plane.
I think it made more horsepower. I thought
absolutely.
It was 450.
Yeah. I think it's going to be really good. Call up the graphs. Let's check it out. You're going to overlay it with the dual plane. Boom.
Oh, look at that.
Yep.
Textbook.
Textbook. Interesting that right here where they meet up, it actually tickled a little bit of a higher torque number than the dual plane.
Gosh, that's a great looking curve.
That is really good.
You know, this is a case where honestly, I would almost give this up on this engine, a street engine, for all of this. I mean, if we look at averages, this is one that really has a much better average on top. We've seen it where it loses a whole bunch of torque and picks up this much for 300 RPM. And that's not worth the trade-off. This really is the exception to that.
Yeah, normally I say that dual plane RPM air gap is the perfect street manifold for anything under 6,500, but in this case, I think you're right. What we're seeing here is that this black line is the single plane manifold, the red is the dual plane. And so the single plane gives up a lot of power down below 4,000 RPM, but in this case, it's way more than making up for it up at the top end. What's interesting here is that the single plane made more peak torque than the dual plane. It made 434 pound-feet at 4,900 and 450 horsepower all the way up here at 6,100. We don't normally see the torque peak come up. Usually where it's rotating, pivoting that curve, you still see better torque with the dual plane, don't you?
Yeah, a lot of times this number over here will be higher than the actual peak, but this engine really is one that lends itself well to the single plane. And it's a small motor too, which surprises me. It's only 351 cubic inches.
I find that the 230, 236 hydraulic roller, that tends to be right at the point where you gotta make this decision. It's like the cam is just big enough that it might like a single plane. It's not a foregone conclusion. And you got to decide what you're using the car for. I mean, if you're throwing this garbage in a tow truck, you would go ahead and put the dual plane on it. If you were drag racing it, you would clearly put the single plane on it.
Even in a street car with a stick or something, I mean, this would be a great intake manifold camshaft combination. It'd be a lot of fun to drive.
Yep.
It's not just a little bit of top end. I mean, that's a great big
No, I mean,
gob.
it picked up 20 horsepower. Sometimes we see
a good range.
8 or 10. This is 20. This is a big change. That's impressive.
What application would you not use the single plane? I mean, I can't see a cam any smaller than this actually being where you would choose the single plane.
Unless it's drag race only.
If it's a street 600 cubic inch engine
you don't
runs to 6,000, put a single plane on it. You're going to have all the torque in the world.
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do with 500 or 600 pound-feet at 3,000 anyway?
Exactly, but on something of reasonable displacement like this.
Yeah. Generally, in street cars, you say, oh, performer RPM air gap.
I always
standard
do.
Answer.
I go straight to it. It's just the one.
I think in this configuration, whether it was a Mopar, a Chevrolet, a Ford with this camshaft and this size engine and decent cylinder head, I think we'd see similar results, but this is pretty impressive. This is a big change.
A big part of this is clearly it was the intake manifold that was the restriction, and that AFR 195 head is really good.
That's a good head.
And so it was able to take what the single plane had to feed it.
Yeah, that's a really good power number for such a basic, like, reman short block with a good top end and a good
still
intake.
Pretty cheap.
Good
and
cam.
At 450 horsepower, you could put a 150 shot on this thing and you could run 10s.
Yeah. I think guys forget how much power 450 horse really is. In a Camaro or Chevelle or something like that. I mean, that was a big block.
You old guys are plenty happy with that.
Thanks.
All right, victory. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
Okay, Dulcich.
What?
Conclude.
I feel completely vindicated.
What?
Yeah.
That's funny because I actually feel a little bit shamed.
Shamed?
Yeah.
Why?
I always tell people that the dual plane is the manifold for a street-going average engine under 6,500. In this case, I would pick this thing instead. The single plane's the better intake on that motor.
Yeah, the reason I feel vindicated is because I personally always make the mistake of going for the single plane when I should be thinking about the good old dual plane.
Oh yeah, you're famous for putting, the smallest displacement engine in the heaviest vehicle with the biggest carburetor and the single plane intake manifold.
Right.
And I think what we saw here is why you don't want to do that, because low RPM, that thing is favoring, and high RPM, you're going to want to get the single plane. But I've also been noodling around some other things. We talked so much in the episode about carburetor signal strength and how that is affected by the design, because what you'll almost always see, as a matter of fact, I think I've always seen it, if you take a carburetor that is tuned perfectly on the air-fuel ratio, remove it from a dual plane and put it on a single plane, it's going to run too lean because the signal strength is going to be less. It's like, have you ever seen where that's not the case?
That's every time, and this time the difference is so dramatic that, man, it could actually do some damage.
What was it? 5 jet sizes?
Yeah.
Six jet sizes. And so that's a big takeaway. But let's say you're an EFI guy and you've got injectors down here in the ports and you have nothing but an air valve up top. You've eliminated the problem of signal strength and the carburetor metering and all of that stuff. But the shape of that power curve and the advantage of horsepower on the single plane and torque on the dual plane is still going to be there because of runner length.
Well, I've actually seen tests that would support that, but maybe we ought to visit that in a future episode of Engine Masters.
Well, here's one thing that we've visited a lot is all of those new throttle body EFIs that have the injectors in the throttle body.
Right.
How many times have you seen that they just barely run right on a dual plane and that they run better on the single plane?
Every single time.
I don't know about every, but virtually every time. I think there's something about the fact that those throttle bodies are injecting the fuel instead of drawing it in, where they might hit the divider wall or the floor and create a weird distribution problem, whereas that's not as much of an issue on the single plane. So that's something to think about also. Is that all?
I think we've covered most of it.
Oh man, it was as simple as that. It's never that easy on Engine Masters.
I know, but look how good it worked.
Oh man.
It's just all self-explanatory practically.
We'll have to make it way more complicated, which we'll do next time. Hey, you know what? We're sponsored by AMSOIL, which is super cool. We also appreciate all the help that we get from Holly with Mr. Gasket and Earls. We also have support from Permatex, Autometer, and Summit Racing. We'll see you next time on Engine Masters.
Here, let me do that, Steve. I don't want you to hurt yourself. You've got a razor blade in your mouth.
I'm going to hurt you.
Oh, you're going to stand back.
This next episode of Engine Masters is going to be kind of different because it's very personal to me. I needed to build this engine in order to fulfill my need to enter the 200-mile-an-hour club at El Mirage Dry Lake. And so I've got 347 cubic inches of small block, and it's got to make 1,000 horsepower. Welcome to Engine Masters, presented by AMSOIL, where this time it's going to be all about me and this engine and my quest to get in the 200-mile-an-hour club at El Mirage Dry Lake. Land speed racing, that's what this is all about. The car this is going in, you might even be familiar with if you are a fan of my other show, Roadkill. It's a second-gen Camaro that we have normally raced at the Bonneville Salt Flats. It's been as fast as 261 miles an hour. We've set a ton of records with that car, but naturally when I put it on Roadkill, it's the only time I've ever gone to a land speed racing meet and not set a record, and we haven't run the car since then, and I'm ready to make that right. This thing is going to go in that car and get me in the 200-mile-an-hour club at El Mirage Dry Lake. You know, if it's the last thing I do. I've spent a lot of money making this happen, which is why this is going to be a very personal episode. And instead of it being a real A/B test and technical analysis of something, this is more of a story about why I created kind of an unusual combination here, why I chose the parts that I chose, because land speed racing is weird. Think of this. In the last mile of Bonneville, 5-mile race, if I average 250 miles an hour, that is 14 seconds at wide open throttle, covering a mile with the engine hovering between about 7,200 and 7,600 RPM. That is abusive. And so we're gonna talk about how I built this thing to survive and how it's also built around the rules and around my own sort of personal and financial constraints in order to do what I needed to do. People have seen this thing on social media a lot and they've asked a bunch of questions. I think I'm gonna be able to answer them all here in this episode. Now let's start to talk tech. I begin with the rule book. There's a lot of people who will build the car that they already have in their driveway and then figure out what class it meets. Instead, I look at the rule book, which also contains the records, and I figure out what class I feel I can set a record in. And then I build the car and the engine around that. Now in this case, the record that I'm looking at is at El Mirage Dry Lake, which is 1 1/3 miles on dirt, and I need to run exactly 201 miles an hour. And in that class, it is a C engine displacement category, which I'll explain to you in a minute, and it's gonna be supercharged, and it has to run on gasoline. So that begins to tell me the formula of what I'm gonna build. The next thing I know is sort of the power that it takes to make my car go fast enough. And I know that if I can make a solid 1,000 horsepower, that at Bonneville, I can run 250 to 260 miles an hour. Now that's a 5-mile track on hard-packed salt. At El Mirage Dry Lake, it's a lot harder and it's a lot shorter of a track. I need to run 200 miles an hour. Basically, my math says I need 1,000 horsepower. And so now we know that I need an engine that fits the C displacement category, which is 306 to 372 cubic inches. I know it needs to run on gasoline, I know it needs to be supercharged, and I know I need 1,000 horsepower. So now that puts me in a position of picking my exact combination. The displacement I chose for this small block Chevy is 347 cubic inches, and we'll get into the details of that, but let me tell you why I've picked that displacement. It's because it puts me right in the middle of that C category, but I can disable 1 cylinder and run on 7 cylinders, and then the engine becomes 304 cubic inches, and I can also run in the D engine displacement category. So that gives me an opportunity with one package to set 2 different records. And as I talk tech on this, you'll see that a lot of the choices are all about making the most of where I've spent my money here to make as many different records as I can. So we know that we'll be running this at 347 inches. We know it's supercharged. I will talk about the specific supercharger choices later on in the show. I know your next question is, how did I end up with 347 cubic inches? Well, I've got an aftermarket block here that has a big bore and a short stroke. The bore is 4 1/8 inches and the stroke is 3 1/4 inches. And so when you multiply that by 8 cylinders, that is 347 cubic inches. And the other reason why I chose that combination is the bigger bore, which is an 1/8 inch larger than a typical 350 small block Chevy, allows for more airflow. The shorter stroke, the 3.25 inch stroke, means less piston speed, which means more reliability at the high RPM that this thing is going to need to turn. So the displacement is not really the only unusual thing about how I've set this up. Here's an unusual thing. I've had a wrench sitting on the intake manifold the whole time. Perfect. The other thing that is kind of weird about this as a race engine is that the plan was not just build absolutely the most power I possibly can. Instead, it's about overbuilding the engine so that it can handle the 1,000 horsepower I need to make without really shooting higher than that. My goal is always overbuild and then make the thing make less power than it's really capable of so that everything is completely reliable. As a result, the bottom end is incredibly expensive and incredibly trick, and the top end is stuff that is not full race. It's more like high-end street level stuff, and we'll get to that. The bottom end needs to be beefy because while guys are making 1,000 horsepower on LS engines with turbos all the time these days, I don't trust a junkyard short block at wide open throttle for more than a minute at more than 7,000 RPM making 1,000 horsepower. Because if parts fall out, they catch on fire. And at 250 miles an hour, that's a bad program. It takes a long time to stop. Parts can throw out of the block and go through a tire. Then you're barrel rolling the car. And so really it is a safety consideration. And it's about reliability. At Bonneville, you have to run 5 miles to get a record twice. You have to do it once in order to qualify and once to back it up. That is a lot of effort on the short block. And here's how I made sure that it was gonna live. The block itself is an aftermarket unit called a Dart Little M. It's the beefiest small block Chevy aftermarket block you can get from Dart. Billet main caps, the whole shebang. The crank and rods I custom ordered from Crower. The thing that makes the crank trick is not just the super high quality, but also that it has a big block Chevy snout on it, which is larger diameter and stronger and cut with 2 keyways to survive the loads of the supercharger being driven off of it. And that means that it also has a special timing chain and a special front cover on it. By the way, this front cover is from Mileton. Everybody asks me about that. The other beef in the short block is in the very custom JE pistons that they made for me. These things are 2618 forgings. They have super precision ring grooves in them and 1.2 and 1.5 millimeter rings. The dome on them is custom made once again so that I can do something really freaky, which is change the volume of the combustion chamber in the heads to run low compression supercharged and high compression if I ever decide to go naturally aspirated. This is really weird. The dome is set up so that with this chamber on it, which is 78 cc's, it's 11.25 to 1 compression. If I put a 64 cc chamber on it, it is almost 14 to 1. So once again, I'm making choices that let me spend my money to use the same parts multiple ways for multiple records. And that piston itself is just beef. It's coated, it's trick. Next, let's get into the oiling system. Thing is, I really wish that I could have afforded a dry sump. It would have been the best thing for safety and reliability on this thing, but it's expensive and complicated. Instead, I have a custom-made aluminum fabricated pan from Billet Fabrications and a Titan pump. I had this in the car on a different engine, and the thing I'll need to do in the car is run vent lines from the valve covers down to these ports that I've got on the oil pan so that it balances the pressure between the crankcase and the top end so that all the oil doesn't gather up at the top. The other thing is, in the past, I've run screens in the lifter valley, and those are designed to keep chunks from getting down into the bottom end if you ever have a failure of any kind, but they also don't let the oil back down. And so we've made mods here to let all the oil get back in the pan so it doesn't pump up into the top while we're going down the track. Now let's talk about the top end, which is comparatively not that trick. And the reason I say that is it's not super high-end 12-degree race heads. It is not a sheet metal intake manifold. The camshaft is not like roller bearings or a large core diameter or special lifter angle or anything like that. They're off-the-shelf parts, stuff that you can buy. So while my bottom end is super expensive for reliability, my top end is just really good, high quality street stuff. It begins with Airflow Research 227 CNC cylinder heads. These are a regular, out-of-the-box 23-degree head that will work with regular pistons and everything. They do require a special valve train. It has a set of T&D shaft rockers on it, and that is only going to help this thing with RPM and reliability. Now, the cylinder heads, I did have modified a little bit by Dugan's Racing Engines. I put in Inconel exhaust valves to survive supercharger heat for a long time, and those guys went through and perfected all of the specs on the head, including adding a wider exhaust margin, because a bigger margin on the exhaust valve can translate heat out of the valve and into the head easier, which is important when we're running wide open for so long. Speaking of valve train, the critical part of that was going to be getting a camshaft with a lobe profile that could handle high RPM endurance racing. So Brule and I went through and we kind of knew what duration we wanted. We kind of knew those basic specs, but we had to talk to Billy Godbold, who is the camshaft designer at Comp, and get him to give us sort of the secret special backdoor, profile that he knew was going to be able to handle even more RPM than what we're dealing with here. The cam lobe he picked is good for 8,700 RPM, and I hope to never actually get there, which means it's going to be perfectly safe below 8,000 RPM. Just for raw specs, it's a mechanical roller. The duration at 50 thousandths tappet lift is 245 on the intake, 256 on the exhaust. It's about 700 thousandths lift with a 1.6 rocker, and it's got a 112-degree lobe separation angle. But man, there's way more to it than that. That thing is like rocket science awesome. Now let's talk induction. Basically, not trick. This is an off-the-shelf Edelbrock Victor E single-plane intake manifold. This is their unit that's designed specifically for multi-point fuel injection. That's why I got it. I couldn't find a manifold that I liked better than this one that came out of the box and had all of the holes in it for the injectors, and also that you could buy a set of rails for. And so I just did that for simplicity. Now the ports in this intake manifold come really small for home porting, and so we had the thing port matched to the AFR 227 head and tapered up the runner a little bit. It's not fully ported, it's just sort of basic work. And of course, I'm controlling the whole thing with Holley EFI. Normally on an engine at this level, somebody would use their Dominator kit. We're just using the middle of the road Holley HP EFI tuner. And I've also got Holley's elbow on here and their 105mm throttle body. And you'll see later in the show why this is pointed off towards seemingly the wrong side of the intake manifold. We've also got Holley's distributor in here, which is the dual sync, meaning it's got sensors in there that double as both a crank sensor and a cam sensor. And last thing, headers. This is only a 1 3/4 inch tube on these headers, which is really small for something making 1,000 horsepower. But the deal is, in the car, we have a set of 1 3/4 inch headers that fit really well and are tucked really tight to the floor. It's more important in land speed racing to get the car low for aerodynamics than it is to make that speck of extra horsepower that we might get with a larger diameter tube header. These dyno headers are actually going to be better than what we're running in the car. So there's the package thus far. We're gonna throw it on the dyno and run the thing naturally aspirated. And then later on in the show, I'll tell you all about the Pro Charger that's gonna be on here that's gonna take me where I need to be on that 1,000 horsepower. Let's go pour some AMSOIL in this thing and get it running. The story about the oil for this engine is actually more interesting than most. So I called Crowler to custom order my crank and rods for this thing, and they knew what I was doing with the supercharger and with the endurance racing and all of that. They wanted to know what oil. It's like AMSOIL, Dominator, which is their racing oil. And Crowler really pointed me in the direction of the 1550 weight, which is heavier viscosity than you would normally use in a racing engine, but it's what they wanted to see for the duration that I'm going to be running this thing at wide open throttle, and also for the fact that it's got supercharger loading on it. So of course, this thing is going to be running on a full load of 8 quarts in the pan, the Dominator 1550. This is it. We're going to show you how this thing runs to 8,000 RPM naturally aspirated.
Nervous?
Yes. Okay, so we just made 432 pound-feet of torque at 5,400 RPM, and the horsepower peak was 534 up at 6,900. But in this case, those power peaks weren't really the point of what we're doing here. This is more like a checkup, a look-see. And that's why, even though it made peak power all the way down at 6,900, we ran it to 8,000, because I suspect when we put the supercharger on it, it's gonna push the power peak higher in the RPM curve, and I just wanna make sure it's stable to there.
Yeah, with an ascending boost curve, it's gonna kind of stretch it out some. So I think it's probably gonna be, I don't know, mid-7s, 78, 79, something like that.
What else does this tell you? It tells me, I think it's actually pretty healthy. I mean, we look at 534 horsepower as not that big of a deal these days, but if you look at the specific output of this thing, so it's making 1.224 pound-feet of torque per cubic inch. Can we look at the oil pressure curve on it? Yeah, it never dives, although it goes to 104 pounds, and with that pressure is probably enough volume to be pushing oil upstairs, and I'm worried about that too. I don't have a dry sump on it, wish it did. Anything else you guys are seeing before we move on to supercharger that we need to look at, consider, talk about?
Too, I didn't see a lot of blow-by or smoke out of the headers at high RPM, which a lot of times you get ring flutter and different things that'll unseat the ring or seal the cylinder. This thing was pretty darn clean.
It has a 1.3, 1.5 ring pack in it, which seems thin, especially for the supercharger and anything. But you know, the new thought is that, what?
Oh no, I'm just smiling because you start seeing that a lot more, and guys go, how narrow on a blower motor?
Yeah, but what it is it's ring to wall conformability that maintains the seal. You know, we used to think that you needed a 5/64 ring or a 1/16 inch, you know, thick piston ring to transfer heat and to maintain tension and to seal. But the trend is just towards thinner and thinner. And the custom pistons, like, there is no up and down wobble at all on the piston ring.
How
it
far
is
down?
in the groove. And
Top ring.
they're custom made so that the ring is further down the piston than it normally would be so that it can endure the heat for the longer distance. Okay, so I think we know what we need to know, naturally aspirated. So we're gonna move on to hanging the supercharger on this thing and working it up from there. So there you go, 535 horsepower from 347 cubic inches. And you know what? We ran this thing on a carburetor in earlier testing and made almost 550 with it. The thing that is of value to you about that is a whole bunch of fans have asked us to show a big bore short stroke, high RPM, naturally aspirated combo. And basically, there you go. Now, a reason why it's important for me to make as much naturally aspirated horsepower as I affordably and practically can is that the more NA power that you make, the more power you're gonna make blown with a lower boost number, and that lower boost number builds less heat and tends to be more reliable. So I'm happy with that 530, 540 kind of horsepower number. Now, the superchargers that I'm gonna use is right there. The ProCharger F1A94. I've become a ProCharger guy. Go back a couple episodes on Engine Masters and you'll see that we put one of these things with a rib drive belt, a serpentine belt, on a stock 350 small block Chevy and made like 765 horsepower. This is that race unit. You can buy it with a cog drive directly from ProCharger. Now, a lot of people have asked me, why aren't you using a turbo? Turbos are the latest and greatest thing. You can make so much more power. And I can't deny it. I could make more power with a turbocharger on this thing than I can with this particular ProCharger. But there are reasons why I didn't want to run a turbo. Let's look into that a little bit. First of all, the ProCharger goes on and off the cylinder head with 3 bolts. 3 bolts and a belt, and I can remove or install this supercharger, which is important for a couple reasons. Serviceability, which is a minor reason. The bigger reason is, once again, changing racing classes from blown to unblown. The turbo kit is gonna completely involve the whole exhaust system. It's not gonna be easy to just get on and off the car, whereas this is. So that's really important to me. Also, with the turbocharger, it has the potential to have a lot of brute low-end torque. I don't really want to have to manage that, even with my EFI program. I'm trying to go 200 miles an hour on a dirt road. Traction and acceleration are a big problem. This centrifugal supercharger has a rising boost curve that's gonna have a much more controllable power gain so that I can put the power to the ground so I can get down the track. And that's a very real thing. The other thing about the turbocharger, at the kind of 20 PSI range, 1,000 horsepower range that we're looking at here, you've seen even on the dyno how exhaust parts will glow red hot. That is a problem in a land speed car going down the track because there's no airflow through the engine compartment because the grill is blocked for aerodynamics. I don't want glowing red hot metal parts in my engine compartment, especially because if I had a gas or a fuel leak and it touches that stuff, whoof, instant fire. That can happen anytime you're making this kind of power, but I believe personally it's a much greater risk with the turbocharger. So I am happy with the ProCharger, and we're gonna find out why right now, because we're gonna go bolt this thing up to the engine. It's gonna be super easy.
All right. Now for some real power. What I've got here is a ProCharger F1A94, and this unit's good for right around 12 or 1,300 horsepower. We're looking to make around 1,000 with the small block Chevy. And it mounts right here. The centrifugal supercharger is much like a turbo, but instead of using the exhaust to drive it, it's driven by the crankshaft. Now here we've upgraded the drive from a typical serpentine to a cog belt, and that eliminates any possibility of slip. Now the crankshaft at max speed is going to be at 8,000 RPM at this engine. You have a drive ratio between the drive gear and the driven gear, but also inside the housing here, we have a step-up ratio. This one is 5.4 to 1. In other words, for every turn here, the impeller is going to be turning 5.4 times faster, up to a maximum speed, as indicated on the data plate here, of 74,000 RPM. We're going to get this hooked up to an intercooler and then into the air intake, into the engine. And we'll see how much boost it puts out, and we'll evaluate the whole system on the dyno. Hey, Brule, what's going on here, man? Is Freiberger in his trailer? I mean, it's his motor. We're doing all the heavy lifting here.
Makeup.
Makeup?
Yeah.
Oh, man, he's got to look his best.
He's trying to put that red helmet back on that he had when he was 15.
Oh, yeah. We have the tune-up right on the engine. We made sure everything was mechanically okay, but the air is not quite as good. It's warmer, plus there's more humidity or moisture in the air, so we're going to do a pulley change to make the blower spin a little bit faster to compensate, and then we should be making the power that we're making with this engine in our original testing, the baseline.
As if by magic, the Pro Charger shows up on the engine. It's actually a super easy installation. 3 bolts hold this bracket onto the front of the cylinder head, and then we just have discharge tubing here going through our massive, I think 2,200 horsepower capable air-to-water intercooler, and Pork Chop's working on plumbing that. This is in, this is out, through the blow-off valve that he's about to install, and through our Holley 105mm throttle body, through the elbow, into our single-plane Edelbrock intake. Okay, we got the blower on there now, and off camera we've run this thing a few times and sort of struggled with the tune and some things a little bit, and it's down on power. I guess you add up the fact that it's hotter, it's more humid.
80% humidity.
And the boost is down 0.4 to 0.5 PSI.
At least.
And we know that the air temp in the intake manifold is 20 to 30 degrees hotter.
Yeah.
So I hope, bench racing wise, that all of that adds up to about the 80 horsepower loss that we were seeing versus what we were doing before. So this is going to be our pull with our new smaller blower pulley and just a mechanical checkup, making sure that that engine's happy. This should be good for 1,000 plus horsepower.
Pretty good.
Was it good?
Yeah, I saw like 1075.
I was kind of pegged left eye on the air fuel meter and right eye on the motor.
I had your trust on the AFR. I was looking at oil pressure and fuel pressure.
Perfect. So yeah, that was good that time. It was a good change.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's still on its way up, 7,600 RPM, 1,070 horsepower, and 760 pound-feet of torque.
Yep. When we started out, we had a bit different fuel pressure that we had to spend a little time tuning around. So you need your own regulator on your rail.
I'll bring my
so that
pump,
doesn't
too.
happen. Yeah.
You can't mess around because the thing's going to be a wide open throttle like
Forever.
Forever.
These things, you know, a 9-second pull seems like a long time. It's not anywhere close to what you're going to do to it.
So I guess the real lesson here is that when you come to the dyno with something like this and you really have a specific plan on what you're going to do with the engine, it's not just a street drive around, do burnouts, you know,
Right.
make 1,000 horsepower with a junkyard motor.
I mean, we learned a lot. And,
It's a 347 cubic inch engine that makes 1,070 horsepower. It's not bad.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know what? Thank you always for your help with
Absolutely.
my actual racing program.
Yeah, it's
And
cool.
I'll expect you to be there with me at the
I will.
garage.
Oh, you know it.
Let's go wrap this thing up. It's a really different game when you've got your own money riding on the dyno like that.
I only want to get one thing out of this whole engine,
What's that?
for you to be happy with it.
Oh, well, I'll get there. You know, I feel
Yeah.
like this has definitely been a step in the process. There's nothing I'm unhappy with.
Right.
It's just I want to go to a further level of tune and confidence, and I want to get more comfortable with the Holley EFI myself so that when I'm racing the thing, I can deal with it in the car.
Well, yeah, if you're racing this, you've got to know every aspect of the engine, how it works, and all the intricacies of it for sure.
You have to, because that situation is way riskier for this investment than it is running it on the dyno by a lot. But, you know, 1,000 plus horsepower, 347 cubic inches, and I think, you know, safe. Definitely nowhere near pushing the limits of anything here, except for we're at the RPM capability of the supercharger.
I mean, a lot of times we're chasing a number, or we're just slamming the thing on the dyno, we're shooting it. We're doing a good job, but we're not taking it down Bonneville for like 30 seconds at wide
This
open
is
throttle.
a different game. And I guess last thing, wrapping it up, what do you think my odds are?
I think it's 100%.
Think we're looking pretty good?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
we'll
so
do
too.
it.
I hope that when we actually run this thing at El Mirage and hopefully get in the 200-mile-an-hour club, I'm working on doing a documentary right here on Motor Trend. Maybe we'll get that done. But regardless, follow us on social media because you'll get to see what goes on with this engine in the future. So on Instagram and Facebook, we are at Engine Masters, and I'm at David Freiberger. He's at Steve Dulcich. Brule is at Dyno Brule. And of course, you can also follow our sponsor at Amsoil Inc. We appreciate all of their help, and also the guys at Holley who helped make this happen. And on this particular episode, I really appreciate the support that I got from Airflow Research and Comp Cams as well. So that's it for this Engine Masters presented by Amsoil. This time on Engine Masters, what is the best header for boost? Spoiler alert, it's not this one. This time on Engine Masters, it's a twofer because we're gonna find out what the best header size is naturally aspirated on our 351 Ford, and then again when we're cramming a whole lot more air through it with boost. See, the thing that I want to figure out is if you're running naturally aspirated, does it maybe make best power with one size header? And then when it's blown and making a whole bunch more power, it requires a different header? And the way we're going to figure that out is with a standard small block Ford making 430 horsepower NA and 630 horsepower blown. So let's look at the specific motor that we are going to punish with boost and run a lot of headers across in this test. This engine in the bottom end is a bone stock 351 Ford. Cast crank, junk connecting rods, cast pistons, stock block, nothing special about it. We've got a Comp Cams hydraulic roller cam in it. It's 230 and 236 at 50. Up top, the key is the AFR 165cc inlet runner aluminum cylinder heads. Just FYI, we've tested these on this engine versus the larger 195s, and the 165s are just as good. It's amazing. We actually dig it. So those are the cheaper heads. Go ahead and buy them. Now up top, we've got the Edelbrock Victor Jr. single plane intake manifold on both combinations. We found out in prior testing that that Victor Jr. on this engine actually makes more power everywhere than the dual plane Performer RPM that we would normally suggest. So that's why we got that on there. Now up top, naturally aspirated, we're going to be running a Holley 750 XP carburetor, and supercharged, it's going to have the Demon blow-through unit. Clearly, we will not have the blower on it for our naturally aspirated testing, and when we do go to supercharged power, it is going to have a ProCharger F1A 94 centrifugal blower, and it's going to be pretty awesome. So there's the combination NA and blown. What are we going to do with the headers? First up, Speedmaster 1 5/8 inch tubes. This is about the low end of a tube you're going to want to put on any V8. They make 1.5 for some applications, but honestly, you'd be a chump to use them. So 1 5/8. Next up, we have got our hooker headers, 1 3/4 inch tubes for the small block Ford. And you can see we've got a header extension bolted to this one. We will have that set up for every single one of the headers that we're going to test because we know that the collector extension makes bottom end power. So this is a 1 3/4 inch tube. Now the next header that we've got is bolted to the engine right now, and they're from Dynatech, and they are a stepped header from 1 3/4 inch for the first, I don't know, 5 or 6 inches of the tube, and then it steps up to 1 7/8 inch. Now you may ask, why aren't you just running a full 1 7/8 inch header? The deal on the small block Ford exhaust bolt pattern is that the 2 bolts next to each port are really close together, and you typically cannot bolt on a header that's bigger than 1 3/4 without having what's called a spread pattern. There's 2 different spread patterns that they make for the small block Ford to put bigger and bigger headers on them. Unfortunately, AFR does not drill the 165 heads for that spread pattern, and that's why we had to use the stepped header that goes from 1 3/4 to 1 7/8. So there's the whole shebang. The first thing that we're gonna do is put the 351 on the dyno. We're gonna bolt it up with the Speedmaster 1 5/8 inch headers and move on from there. Just wait for the boost because it's really cool. Okay guys, headers versus boost. How do you like the test?
I like it good.
Yeah? What's gonna happen?
I don't even know where to go with that.
I can anticipate it, Freiberger.
You can?
Oh, yeah, it's self-explanatory because with boost, you're going to be making more combustion and what else? More exhaust. So in my theory, more exhaust is going to demand more header.
Yep, that's my theory too. So I am coming into this with a preconceived notion that the biggest header is going to be the best with boost. What I'm hoping is that the biggest header actually loses a little torque NA.
Tilts the curve.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, basically what we're doing with the blower is increasing the size of the engine.
Yeah.
So
So-
bigger engines generally want bigger headers.
We're going to kick it off with the smallest headers, which is the Speedmaster 1 5/8 units, which I should clarify to the audience. Watch when this thing is running when Steve backs off of it because it shoots fire out the back. It has a like really flimsy flange up against the head and it's got a leak. And when you decelerate, it sucks oxygen and the unburned gases in the pipe then go poof. So you'll see that happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
We tried fixing that and there just
There's
wasn't
no
any way.
fixing it,
No.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, well, we'll get rid of these headers quick if you would just go fire it up and give us a baseline. Our baseline numbers with those small headers are 415.1 pound-feet of torque at 4,900 RPM and 423.5 horsepowers at 5,800 RPM. Actually, a little bit better than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, myself as well, it doesn't seem like it really lost that much from when we've tested it and run it before. So I think it looks pretty normal.
I guess that's all there is. I think we can go change up to the 1 3/4 and hopefully eliminate our exhaust leak and explosions while we're at it.
I hope.
Okay, ready? Here we come. 1 3/4 inch header changeover. Well, there's the 1 3/4 power curve right there. We're looking at 415.3 pound-feet of torque at 4,800, basically no change. And up top, 432.1 horsepower, which is an improvement, and it carried it to 6,000 RPM. It used to make peak power at 5,800 RPM. But as per usual, the whole story is not in the peak numbers, so let's look at the overlay. Interesting. Black lines 1 3/4, the larger headers. Red lines 1 5/8, the smaller headers. Look how the bigger
That's what
ones
I find, yeah.
made more torque.
Yeah.
Once again, sort of in this case, dashing the whole small headers make more torque.
Right. That's always unpredictable, but that's a big gain right there.
I think it's a how high is up thing. What's the engine that you're dealing with? If the engine was a whole lot more tame, if it was a 300 horsepower unit, maybe it would make less torque with the bigger header.
This is just a more appropriate header for this size and horsepower engine.
Right, we cannot say categorically that 1 3/4 always makes more torque than 1 5/8.
No.
It depends on the application. In this case, clearly the 1 5/8 was choking the engine out. What's interesting is that it's actually the same in peak torque and right in this area up there, but obviously up at the top end, you would clearly choose the 1 3/4. So we're vindicated.
Yeah, I like the 1 3/4 a lot better. That's a nicer curve for sure.
Yeah. One thing I noticed though is it looked to me like it was richer throughout the pull. Explain that to me, because we'd expect it to be leaner.
Actually, I wouldn't expect it to be either rich or
You'd
lean.
expect
I
the
would just
same?
expect it to be very, very close.
I guess I was thinking exhaust restriction tends to make it richer, but I guess we're not looking at restrictions as much as we are pulse width, lengths and things like that.
Yeah, it got richer. I'm not sure I can explain it. I don't normally see that big of a swing, but
let's show the audience what we're talking about. So this curve is averaging roughly 12 to 1 down in here, and this one is 11 1/4 to 1. 11 1/4 1 is richer, meaning there's more fuel in the air than the red line, which is leaner, which...
It's a half a ratio difference.
So what's the bottom line on this change in air fuel ratio? Do you feel like we need to go jet the thing?
Yeah, I mean, there's something there. It depends on how close you want to get. I mean, there's 3 or 4 horsepower there, I think, kind of potentially over the whole curve. So if we're looking for those kind of numbers, then I think we need to go address it.
So we're gonna go jet the carburetor. We're gonna take 3 numbers out of it and try and get the air fuel ratio to match the 1 5/8 inch header a little bit better. Basically didn't care. No. Now we've got our power once we leaned the thing out a little bit. First, let's have a look and see how you did on your jetting.
Apparently I didn't whiff it that bad.
You did not whiff it. That's essentially the same. Yeah, from 12.0 to 12.1. Yeah, it's the same. There's some anomaly up here, but it doesn't matter. So, okay, let's look at the power difference now that it's leaned out to match. There's the comparison of lean to rich. The short version is it just doesn't care.
No.
The black line is with it a little bit leaner. It actually gave up just a tiny, tiny bit down here, but it doesn't care. Let's take the leaner curve and compare that with the 1 5/8 inch header so that we can be more. Okay, there we go. Black lines are the 1 3/4 inch larger header. Red lines are the 1 5/8 inch smaller header, and it's kind of doing the exact same thing that it did before the tune-up. No surprise whatsoever. So there's your answer from small to big. Now we're gonna move even bigger. We're gonna go to a header that has 1 3/4 inch tube right out of the port because that's all we can bolt to the head, and then it steps up to a 1 7/8 for the rest of the run. Now we're looking at the results with the largest headers, the ones that have mostly 1 7/8 inch pipe. We made 414 pound-feet of torque at 4,700, which sounds very familiar, basically hasn't changed the whole time. 436.9 horsepower, the biggest number that we've seen, at the highest RPM that we've seen, 6,100. But I have a feeling that if we overlay that with the 1 3/4 inch header, it's gonna give us a completely different story. And that is a different story. The red line here is the smaller 1 3/4 inch header, and the black line is the 1 7/8. This is probably the biggest part of the story.
Yeah, for me it certainly is. That's kind of what I saw when I rolled into the throttles. I went, man, it's just not there.
Yeah,
right.
I looked at Steve and went,
yeah.
Yeah, but I also expected it to carry on. I wasn't sure that it was gonna make more power up at the top, and it did.
I wasn't 100% sure, but it certainly had a chance, being as though the header's larger. And it's also, as we just went and found out, it's shorter.
Right. Yeah, the shorter tube length, you think, is what's causing this right here?
That's my guess, is the length, you know, being 4 inches shorter. I think that affected it more drastically than the change in diameter.
Right in there, and it depends on where your operating range is going to be. I mean, that's all occurring at 3,500 or below, or 3,600.
This isn't a drag race engine. You know, if you were using this as a drag race engine, you're weak. So I would say in the real world, I would choose the smaller header if I was throwing this in my Mustang or whatever.
Well, certainly normally aspirated.
Aspirated,
I'd be choosing the 1 3/4 because how often are you here and how often are you down there?
I guess what I'm looking at next is we're going to install the supercharger, and I want to see if the trend with the header is the same with the supercharger, or if we see a bigger and bigger gain. Like, for example, the 1 3/4 header, let's say the blower adds 150 horsepower. With the larger header, will it add 165?
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So next step, we're gonna go install our Pro Charger and return down to the bottom with the 1 5/8 inch header and progress back through all of the headers with boost. Boost. And the precious. I love me a ProCharger centrifugal supercharger. This model is an F1A94, which is way more than we need for this engine. This is the very supercharger we use to make 750 horsepower on a stock bottom end 350 Chevy on another episode of Engine Masters. And I've got the same model on my 347-inch land speed engine that makes nearly 1,100 horsepower. So that tells you about the capability of this thing. And actually, it moves so much air that we had to take steps to reduce the boost on this one. When Brule first hooked it up, even with the huge crank pulley and a 4.5-inch blower pulley, this thing was making like 13 pounds, and the engine was on its way towards making 800 horsepower. Now, we wanted our 351 to survive, and so we had to tame it down. So they did two things to cut the boost down to 9 PSI. One, they restricted the inlet by adding this big tube and a pretty small air filter. By letting less air go into the supercharger, it has less air to work with and it makes less boost. Now here's the other thing that's really wild. This is a hole in our discharge tube right there. And it is as big around as my finger. That is like a 3/4 inch hole right there. And drilling that only dropped 1 PSI of boost, which will blow your mind. So we're gonna go see this thing make, I don't know, 600 plus horsepower right now. And then we're gonna step back through all our different headers to find out which one is best for boost. Wow, it's way louder.
I know. It sounds wicked.
It really does.
That was 10 pounds or so boost.
Yeah,
Wow.
that thing shrieks.
No, totally.
That was cool. We just made 553.7 pound-feet of torque, and it pushed the RPM way up to 5,400 RPM. We were looking at 4,900 RPM with this header before. And the horsepower, 620.1, also higher in the RPM range at 6,300 RPM.
Do you think that the increase in the points of peak torque and peak power are because of the header or because of the rising boost curve?
Oh, it's the boost
Boost
curve,
curve.
for sure.
Yeah, there's no
right.
question.
Yeah, it's moving more air, for sure.
Yeah, it's getting more boost as the RPM rises, so that's going to
This
pull
type
the,
of supercharger just continues to move
that's
up.
going to pull the torque curve up as you're revving. So
Let's find out what the boost curve looks like and what our peak was. Wow, nice steady climb. This is what you see with a centrifugal supercharger. They start off low. As RPM increase, so does the boost. So we started off down here at basically 2 point something and ended up at a peak of 9.6 PSI of boost, so not quite 10. Now let's have a look just versus NA, just because we can. Wow. Do I have to tell you which color lines are NA and which ones are blown? I don't think so. Down there's NA, up there's blown. But yeah, once again, this is the rising boost curve situation. See how the difference is less down at the bottom and far greater at the top? It's because that boost is just rising and shoving the thing higher and higher and higher in power.
you also notice that the curves are the same basic shape, but they're just exaggerated with boost.
And tilted up like this. They're not railroad tracks.
No.
It's not a perfect divide. It's more of a tilt up because of the boost.
It diverges because the boost increasing.
But what Steve's saying is that the actual shape of it is the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you overlaid them, they would follow that same arc.
Especially if you're looking at the torque curve, where they're both on the downward trajectory on the roll in, and then at about the same point, they start to
climb.
level off.
Yep. And then they start to fall off really at the same rate.
Yeah. So it's
That's kind of the thing we keep on seeing, is that whatever the engine does NA is the same thing with boost, just more.
Well, that remains to be seen with the bigger header. So
Which is the whole point of the
I want to
episode.
hop in there and swap to the bigger header right now.
Go ahead. I didn't know he volunteered to change the headers. Let's kick back. Now we're gonna run the 1 3/4 inch header with the supercharger. Here are our results with the 1 3/4 inch header and the blower, and I've already done some maths here and it's blowing my mind. First of all, the peak power numbers are 553.8 pound-feet of torque at 5,400 RPM, which I will notice is 1/10 of a pound-foot better than the 1 5/8 inch headers. And the horsepower now is 623.8 at 6,500 RPM, which is 3.7 horsepower different. Now the math that I did is also the average power from 3,000 to 6,500 RPM. And without even reading you the data, I will tell you it is the same within like less than one number. The same. But let's look at the curve. Is it also the same? Whoa! Mind blower. The red lines are the 1 5/8 inch headers and the 1 3/4 are in black. And the only place that made a difference is way up at the top where we think we had some sort of dyno anomaly anyway, or something going on where the 1 3/4 made a tiny bit more power, or maybe it's stacking up right there.
We saw the same trend NA with a little dip here with the small header.
Oh, did we?
Versus the big 1 7/8. It smoothed it out quite in that last couple hundred RPMs.
And this right here, I'm not calling that anything whatsoever. They are the same. The same. Okay, when we made the change from 1 5/8 to 1 3/4 when we were naturally aspirated, I looked at peak horsepower and we picked up 1.9%. I looked at the average throughout the curve from 3,000 to 6,500 RPM and we picked up 1.15% on average for torque and 1.56 on average for horsepower. So we saw a gain NA. We did not see anything even calculatable.
And curiously, with the header change NA, we saw a divergence down low, which we're not showing here at all when we're testing the same two headers under boost, right?
Can you overlay the naturally aspirated 1 5/8 versus 1 3/4 on this same chart?
Sure.
Okay, so that's that 1% or 1.1% change that I was talking about, is that it's different down here than it is out here, but it just tilts the curve and they change.
It really doesn't. It's lower everywhere. Green and green.
Well, they overlay here.
Yeah.
So under boost, it seems like the engine's less sensitive to header diameter so far. If you
Which blows my mind. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, but what's the scavenging effect of the blower? It's creating positive cylinder pressure. It's not just a depression as the pistons going in and all the tuning of the waves and stuff. You actually have you've got pressure mechanically pushing into the cylinder.
It's something that I really wouldn't have thought of before, but you know, it kind of follows a trend we've seen numerous times with testing other components. Everything seems like it matters less under pressure.
I would say everything that we've seen so far is that if whatever happens NA is what happens under boost, except this, because that tilt doesn't exist in the curve. And we've all read and said and heard forever that you need a bigger exhaust tube with boost.
Well, maybe you do. We could always change to even bigger pipes to see if that tends to reinforce this.
But this alone is already
pretty interesting.
Not what I expected whatsoever. This is killing my preconceived notion.
All day long I've been saying, well, it's like a bigger engine. But there's more to it than it just being a bigger engine, because it's not normally aspirated anymore and all of those dynamics change.
Well, you ready to go put on the 1 7/8 and have mind blown again?
Is it my turn?
We'll help. This will be our final test. This is the headers that are stepped from 1 3/4 to 1 7/8. And the wild card is they're a little bit shorter too. So we're gonna find out if boost cares.
Like that.
Ding, 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 ding. 637.2 horsepower, 566.4 pound-feet of torque. Yeah, the peak torque and the peak horsepower is way up. And look at this.
Well, we better look at the boost.
I know,
make
we
sure
gotta
it's
look
the
at
same.
everything. Yeah, let's look at the boost. See if for some reason that climbed. Yeah, so basically the boost didn't change regardless of the header style, which is actually good because it means there's less variables in the testing.
Yeah, if we saw an extra couple of PSI there,
then we'd start hunting for why and everything. Okay, what should we compare it to first? I guess we should throw up the boosted 1 3/4 inch header. This comparison shows the 1 7/8 inch headers in black and the 1 3/4 in red. This is the curious part.
It's a whole lot better now than it was NA.
Right, doesn't matter as much. So we can see that we made more power essentially everywhere with the larger header. I mean, that's definitely a choice you'd make, run the larger header. So why did it make a difference here and it didn't make a difference from 1 5/8 to 1 3/4?
which you would think would make more difference starting from way smaller and then giving it some room. And then usually when you give it a little more room by the same proportion, you know, you get diminishing returns. But right here, it seems like.
Yeah, it's the same diameter change, although the volume change
You're
is
looking
much
at the-
more radical.
The percentage of the orifices
It's much bigger.
more.
Yeah, I mean, in diameter it's the same, but the volume is radically different, which I guess is what we're seeing here. I'm just surprised that the 1 5/8 and the 1 3/4 were so similar, and this one's making that much of a jump. So that's telling me that both the other headers were a restriction. Let's look at the NA comparison of these same two headers, 1 3/4 versus 1 7/8.
See how it just killed the bottom end out of it?
Yeah, right here is where you're looking about how the larger header, when it was naturally aspirated, killed bottom end, and we did not really see that trend under boost. It is a little change here and there, but not a distinct loss like you've seen here and here.
So there is a less sensitivity as far as that low end torque's concerned with our changes in headers compared to NA.
Exactly, and naturally aspirated, the larger header pulled away way up here at, what, 5,400 RPM, whereas with boost, it pulled away at 3,500, 600, 700 RPM, basically. So my overall conclusion to the episode is, I don't understand why the 1 5/8 and the 1 3/4 ran identical, and I'm vindicated in my presumption that the largest header was going to make more power once we were under boost. I think the thing that's frustrating all of us is that we're not seeing a pattern. You know, normally we see a regular progression that's sort of logical. In this case, we're not. So the real argument here is, why did the two smaller headers run exactly the same? And in this case, with the 1 7/8 versus the 1 3/4, is the difference because of the larger tube diameter? Or is it because they're a shorter primary length?
It's a slight difference in the primary length. I mean, it's 3 inches, which will certainly make a difference, but not a huge one. I think it finally got to a point where there was enough header diameter that it was able to make a little more power. I don't think the supercharged engines are as sensitive to header configuration, you know, like primary links and collectors and all of that stuff below peak torque, like an NA engine is.
Yeah, we saw that definitively as far as what happened at the bottom of the curve. The 1 5/8 and 1 3/4 were almost the same, and then the 1 7/8 did show an increase. You know, it was distinct. So that is the toughie.
Yeah, so I mean, the conclusions that we can make, I believe, only really apply to this engine and the header configurations that we tried. If you're duplicating this 351, I would definitely run a 1 3/4 inch header, naturally aspirated,
Right.
in my opinion. Although the 1 7/8 did make a little bit more top end power. I like the average better on the 1 3/4. And I would run this stepped 1 3/4 to 1 7/8 inch header if I was supercharged.
Absolutely.
And I think that I would carry that trend into other engines just sort of intuitively, but I don't see a pattern where I can say, this tends to be what's going to happen for an engine of this style.
Well, it's hard to draw one conclusion from it because each engine configuration is going to be slightly different, and the application that it's used in might be slightly different. So even in an NA application, you're going to pick a different header for different things. And I think the same thing's going to happen here with the supercharger.
The thing is, engines, I think they vary, and you don't always see a positive conclusion, but really, knowledge is cumulative,
Yes.
and we just didn't see a pattern this time.
But we learned something.
But did we?
I think
Maybe
I
you
did.
did.
Inch and
Hopefully
7/8.
you did. Because that's our goal, is trying to teach you something every time on Engine Masters.
I want to hop in there and swap to the bigger header right now.
Go ahead. I didn't know you volunteered to change the headers. Let's kick back. You want a cola or anything? Can I get you beer?
Beer's good.
Beer's good? All right, I'll be right back. You still have the MGD in the refrigerator?
You know, I can't really do that and drive my car home, so.
So not anymore? Oh, come on. I need you to go buy beer.
I'll have a cold brew.
This time on Engine Masters, we're going to show you how to buy the right cylinder heads. Meanwhile, we're going to stumble into a killer combination for a 408 Ford Stroker. This episode is going to be a deep dive on how to buy the right cylinder heads for your engine. And actually, the data here is being applied to a small block Ford, but really, it's kind of broad across any engine family because all we're dealing with here is airflow and the dynamics of the volume and the cross-sectional area of the intake port. And we're doing that specifically by testing 3 sets of Airflow Research Renegade cylinder heads. Now, one of them has a 165cc intake port, one of them is a 195cc, and one of them is a 220. Now, the common internet theory is that you can put too big of a head on your engine and therefore lose bottom end torque, and that's what we want to find out. And to do that, I've assembled an engine that is a really, really calm street-going motor. I wanted to keep the airflow and the RPM down so that we could do the best job possible in finding out if too big of an intake port really does kill torque. The engine itself is a 410 cubic inch stroker that's based on a Ford 351 Windsor. The short block is from Blueprint Engines. You've seen it a bunch of times on Engine Masters. It's been really good to us. Up top, the Holley XP carburetor, an 850 double pumper. The intake manifold is an Edelbrock dual plane. Best thing for the street, best thing for torque. It's a Performer RPM air gap. We've put MSD ignition in it. The cam itself is really small. The duration at 50 thousandths tappet lift is 218 on the intake, 224 on the exhaust. Very low lift at half an inch, 0.513 inch lift, and it's on 110 degree lobe separation angle. The engine itself's about 10.2 to 1. The exhaust system is a set of open headers, Hooker supercomps in a 1 3/4 inch tubing diameter. What we're gonna do with this is run those 3 sets of heads across it with different intake ports, and there's a few other features that they have that are different as well, and I'll spell that out later. But we're gonna start out with the tamest cylinder head that Airflow Research makes for the small block Ford. It has a 165cc intake port, and it's the most affordable one that they make. I'm really concerned that it's just gonna choke the power out of a big 410 cubic inch small block, but you never know until you go strap it on the dyno, which is what we're about to do. We've run this thing in the dyno in a bunch of different configurations, but the one thing that stayed the same is we've always used the AMSOIL Dominator 1030 in this thing. And there's a chance this thing is actually gonna squeak its way into one of my own cars, and I always use synthetics in the stuff that I really care about, obviously not in some of the clapped out junk that I drive. So this thing will survive on AMSOIL, and you know I really care about it because look, I brought a funnel so as not to soil my new AFR valve covers. Yeah, this is the single smallest camshaft I've ever intentionally installed.
So you're turning into me, you're turning into a top of the page guy instead of a bottom of the page guy.
Yeah, smooth idle, nice drivability. I still think these cylinder heads are gonna strangle it with that 165cc intake port.
I agree.
I gotta tell you, I got a chance to look at this thing, you know, before you guys got here when I was getting it up, and this thing's pretty good. I kind of have a new favorite combination: big motors, small heads, small cams. So
It's heresy!
I want the small cam and the gigantic heads.
Yeah.
That's going to be
let's
the
see.
magic.
That's ridiculous.
In your face.
What?
That's what I was saying. I'm looking at the curve when I pre-ran it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh wow, would this be fun? I mean, this thing's got 450 pound-feet at 2,500 RPM.
And what was the peak? 520? Let's look
yeah,
at
as far
it.
as torque. Oh, it's really bad.
I was just blown away by the torque curve on this thing. Look at that. We just made 515 pound-feet of torque and 471.4 horsepower. I didn't see that coming either.
I know, that's what I said
The
was so good about
471?
it. Because it's kind of as good power-wise as a good 383 stroke or something, but they don't make this kind of torque.
They don't make 500
and they
pound
certainly
feet.
don't have that kind of drivability.
Yeah.
Now you guys know why I bleed Ford blue, right?
Are we only going to ruin it from here?
Well, if we take away from here and add to there, then it's kind of driver's decision. But as long as we can hold on to this and pick up some of this, then that's going to be a win.
Can I go out on a limb here?
I'm sure you will anyway.
I really don't think that the intake port cross-section is going to affect that very much.
But the increased
size of it.
airflow has got to make it better.
Here's the question though. What does it do at part throttle? We're going to look at full throttle, but what's it do at part throttle with a big head versus this thing? This 165.
Yeah, we don't know. Okay, the reason that was mind-blowing is that none of us expected a 410 cubic inch engine to be able to make that kind of horsepower and torque through a 165 cc intake port. That is considered very small. Typically, you'd think of that cylinder head for like a 302 cubic inch engine, but I think what that trained us is that that number alone is not everything when you're buying a cylinder head, even though it's normally how people refer to heads. For example, these would be an AFR 165, 195, and 220. That's the lingo that people throw out, but there's more to it. Let me explain to you what that CC number really means, and I'm gonna do that using this cutaway of a Mopar 426 Hemi cylinder head. This is actually a Keith Black head that was given to me a long time ago, but it's super handy for showing stuff like this. So imagine you've got your intake valve right here and your exhaust is over here. This is your intake port, that's your exhaust port. Now, if there was a valve in here sealing it off, and if you were to fill it with water up to this face right here, which is where the intake manifold bolts on, then you could measure that volume of water in cc's and it would tell you the overall volume of the port. That's where those numbers come from. But there's another thing that you need to know. It's called minimum cross-sectional area. It's the smallest point inside the intake port, and it's another number that people use to sort of evaluate if a cylinder head is in the range of what they want to use or not, and that would be right here on this cylinder head. So that changes on the AFR heads as well. For example, the 165cc has a pinch or smallest cross-sectional area of 1.935 inches. Then you move on to your 195 and it's got a 2.075 pinch, and on the biggest head it's actually 2.375. So you can see that the size varies a lot, and the theory is that the bigger the port is, the more you can tend to lose low RPM torque, and that's what we're going to find out today. But let me tell you what's the same about the 3-cylinder heads that we're going to test before I tell you about what's different about them. First of all, they're all from Airflow Research. They're all from the Renegade line. They're all CNC ported, and they all have a 58cc chamber on them. So the compression ratio on all of these is the same. The other thing that's important to note is that the rocker arm studs are in the same place on all of these, so you can interchange them without having to worry about rocker arm geometry and push rod length and stuff like that. Now, here's some things that are different about these cylinder heads. The valve size is one of them. On the 165 head, you have a 1.94 inch intake valve and a 1.6 in the exhaust. The 195 head that we're just about to bolt on has a larger 2.05 intake valve and a 1.6 on the exhaust. And the 220 head, which by the way, this isn't one of them, this is just a prop, but the 220 has a 2.1 inch intake valve. And because that's so big, they had to reduce the size of the exhaust valve to 1.57. Another thing that is different between the various heads is going to be the exhaust port. They know as the head sort of gets racier and racier that you need more flow not just on the intake side but also on the exhaust. And for that reason, the exhaust port is 68 cc's on the 165 and it's 70 on the other two. But the other modification is that the exhaust on the 195 and the 220 is raised, which tends to improve flow. On the 195cc head, it's raised 0.125 inches, 1/8 of an inch. On the 220, it's raised 0.375, 3/8 of an inch. Now that can be important to you if you're buying headers because sometimes they won't fit if the ports have been changed. And you can see that on the two bigger cylinder heads, the exhaust pattern is what they call double drilled. There's a wider pattern and a narrower pattern. And especially on the 220, it's possible to put a header on it that can block a little bit of that exhaust port flow. So what we're doing here is not just scientifically testing the intake port design alone. Instead, we're gonna test what you can realistically buy off the shelf from any manufacturer for any domestic V8 engine that you might have. Because this technology, it all applies to anything, a Chevy, a Mopar, whatever. And we're gonna do the best to sort of bench race that out and get some solid data when we go to the dyno and remove the 165 to install the 195cc head as our next step. And finally, we're gonna wrap it up with the AFR 220 and find out if, like the internet says, too big of a head can kill torque.
I've got a really simple theory when it comes to heads, port size, and velocity and all that.
Bigger is better?
Oh man, you just totally stole my thunder. How did you know?
I've met you.
I think here's a good tech note. Because on some of the gasket manufacturers you'll see on the Ford gasket where it says front,
Yeah?
this one actually doesn't. So you need to be smart enough to know why. In both the cylinder head and the block, there are water passages. It's the head gasket that determines the direction of flow. So if we were to have put this gasket on this way,
Yeah.
the water is going to enter the water pump, come through the cylinder head, come right out here into the intake manifold and back out the front. This whole part of the motor would have zero flow.
I did not know. That's
so
good.
now we do this,
And all the
and
water
the
goes
water
to the
is
back.
forced all the way to the back, comes up the back, through the head, out the water passage, so it circulates and flows and cools the whole block.
Also, did you notice this is a Mr. Gasket MLS?
I did.
Their claim is that the coating on this does not require as smooth a surface as some of the other ones.
Oh, interesting, because you have a lot of them that gives you a specific RA finish that you have to
Yep.
use the gasket.
They say it can be a little bit rougher.
Just so you know, that's my one and only Ford Tech tip
It was really
for the
good.
year.
I liked it.
I only have two. I'll save one for next year.
195 cylinder heads going on. Here comes a winner. You know what else is really cool about the AFR heads?
What?
8mm valve stem.
Oh, that's really good.
Yep. Kills some weight, flows better.
Yeah.
Good. I'm confident it makes more power everywhere.
That would be cool if it did, because it made really good power before. We have a pretty big step to go up.
It flows a lot more.
But the valve diameter is good on this head. I like that.
Will it make 500 horsepower? We're gonna pick up 30 numbers.
No.
I don't think so either.
Well, blurt out a number, Steve-O. Come on.
93.
93.
493
Yeah.
horsepower.
Well, we were at 470, right?
Yeah.
500.
Dulcich called it. I can't naysay it, because he's Dulcich.
I know.
Man,
the
come
wizard
on,
of all
baby.
wizards.
Not quite there, but still really impressive.
I had a pretty good feeling when it came in about 8 pound-feet better.
Yeah.
So at this point, with this cam, so far, this is a better cylinder head.
Absolutely. The bigger cylinder head makes more power. Kind of no shock whatsoever. Really, at every single point in the curve. This stuff down here is like 2600 and below, and it's the same down there. So we made 520.8 pound-feet of torque, 484 horsepower with a really broad spread. Almost 1,800 RPM between the RPM at peak torque and peak horsepower, which makes for a really nice engine.
You know, I don't think the big surprise is the 195. I think the big surprise is how good
the 165
is. It's amazing.
It still blows my mind. I'm really shocked by it. The thing we don't know is like throttle response, transitional throttle, part throttle. You know, we know the airspeed has got to be faster through the 165 head, and we know that that leads to better tipping.
I know with the 165 it would be really good.
What?
The part throttle, transitional throttle response, all that stuff, it would be really good.
Yeah.
And on this big of an engine, even the 195, it's got to be excellent.
It's got to be.
But now,
No
is
downside.
the 220 going to finally lose some torque, or are we going to see the same torque and even more power?
I say same torque and
why
more
we're
power.
I think every internet forum on Earth claims this is going to be worse, killing torque, right?
Really?
Yeah, I think
Right.
they do.
I don't read the internet enough, apparently.
It would
No,
be
it's-
consensus.
yeah.
Consensus would be it's too big.
Yeah, too big of a port.
It's just like
Yeah.
Goldilocks and the Three Bears. The other heads are probably just right,
Yeah, probably.
but probably not. I'd say Papa Bear is the best.
The fail in our test here is I think I chose a 410 cubic inch engine because
Had you chosen a 302 and started with a 165 and found out that a 220 might be too big at some point,
I tried to compensate for that with the small camshaft, you know.
and then you just made more torque.
All I did is make more torque. How are we going to live with ourselves if it actually makes more power everywhere and
I think
people
it
tell us
will.
we're wrong?
I think it will. I really do.
I think it will too. But it might give up a little bit of
Might
torque.
give up 5 or 6 between 2,500 and 3 is my guess, and then it's off to the races.
And it's going to make 497 horsepower.
493.
493.
I don't want to make a guess this time.
I'm going to guess because it doesn't matter. You're always right and I'm always wrong.
I'm just going to be silent on this one.
Okay. Well, let's find out what it is going to do.
It's the same as the 165.
Yeah.
After all of that, I'm not sure we really proved anything.
It proved I don't know anything.
I know, I don't know anything either. I mean, I think that 165 is a killer head. I think we proved the 195 is the logical one you really should run on an engine like this, even if you've got another 20 degrees of cam probably. And if it's anything bigger than that, you want the 220 with the correct single plane intake manifold and the correct solid roller cam and the correct big header.
And making peak power at 7,500 RPM
Right.
and all of those things that head is designed for with that kind of flow number at 800 lift.
But this is the craziest thing, that these numbers we have on the screen right now, those are the 165 head versus the 220. They essentially run exactly the same. So my walk away is throw the 195s back on this thing and stab it in the Mach 1 and have a great time. Ready to go wrap this up and like try and package all this information into a believable ball of BS.
Oh, no.
Believable or unbelievable, the numbers are the numbers. They're just a little confusing even, you know.
I've got it all put in a box, man. I get it completely.
Well, go spill. Let's do it. Okay, Steve, open up your big box of wisdom.
Well, I've got to admit, I mean, the 408 Ford took me to school.
Really? How?
Yeah, my whole theory of bigger is always better kind of let me down for the first time.
So what's the point, Dulcich?
Well, the point as far as I'm concerned is we didn't lose any low-end torque, and that's really what people talk about with bigger heads. We made great power with a tiny head on a big cubic inch motor with a tiny camshaft. So I guess really there is no conclusion.
Well, no, there is because of what you're talking about. I think that we are starting to see stuff that we've never tested before where a good cylinder head with a tiny camshaft is a great street motor. And that's probably something a lot of people have known for a long time, but we're just discovering it because normally we like giant cam stuff. But the whole thing about proving that a large port kills low-end torque, we didn't see that at all. But to be fair, On the dyno, it's not really showing throttle transitions and things like that. So I'm not sure that people can conclude categorically that you should always put the biggest cylinder head that you can on your engine. I don't think that's the case. I think the 195 is the right cylinder head for this combination.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was gonna say the 195 seemed to be the optimum. It did make the most horsepower, and it's probably the right head for this motor.
So you were gonna open your big box of wisdom and I just ripped it open like a 5-year-old on Christmas morning?
Well, I've already shared with you all the conclusions.
Oh, that's right. I just sapped your knowledge and shared it with the audience as if it was mine. And that's what happens pretty much on every episode of Engine Masters. We'll see you next time.
This is not a man bun, is it?
Well, not yet.
No, it never will be.
If you move it just an inch higher, you're getting close to a man bun. But see, it's a ponytail now.
Down this old dirt road in autumn, where the fields turn golden red, I stack the memories like firewood, feed the flames of words we said. You were standing by the fence line, sweater wrapped around your arms. Promised love would last forever, just a whisper in the barn. Now I'm burning autumn leaves, letting go of you and me. Smoke is rising through the trees, but your ghost won't set me free. I keep feeding fire's need, hoping ashes plant a seed, but no fire burns these memories. I'm just burning autumn leaves. I see shadows in the cinders, silhouettes of days we knew. Bonfire crackles like your laughter, drifting ember shades of you. If the wind could take this burden, blow it far beyond my reach, I'd still stand here every evening, stirring ghosts I cannot teach. Now I'm burning autumn leaves, letting go of you and me. Smoke is rising through the trees, but your ghost won't set me free. I keep feeding fire's need, hoping ashes plant a seed, but no fire burns these memories. I'm just burning autumn leaves. Maybe spring will find me stronger, with new roots beneath my feet. But tonight I'm just a mourner, watching gold turn into grief. Now I'm burning autumn leaves, letting go of you and me. Smoke is rising through the trees, but your ghost won't set me free. I keep feeding fire's need, hoping ashes plant a seed, but no fire burns these memories. I'm just burning autumn leaves. Yeah, no fire burns these memories. I'm just burning autumn leaves. Woke up to the rooster crowing at the break of dawn. Daddy's out there working, got his boots and his gloves on. Mama's in the kitchen, coffee brewing on the stove. The sound of home, the life I've known, the only place I've loved. I'm proud to call it home, where the fields stretch far and wide. stay. Summers spent on hay rides, winters by the fire's glow. Sunday church with old folks, singing hymns so soft and low. We don't need no fancy things, just good hands and a plow. The kind of life that money can't buy. Yeah, I never trade it now. I'm proud to call it home, where the fields stretch far and wide, where hard work makes a living and we hold our heads up high. Ain't no city lights, just the stars that guide my way. This little town, this patch of ground, is where my heart will stay. We wake up early, work till the sun sinks low, sweating dirt on calloused hands, that's just the way it goes. But every night we gather round, count our blessings one by one. This simple life, this country road, I wouldn't trade for none. So when the world gets fast and crazy and I need a place to go, I'll find my way back down that road to the only home I know. I'm proud to call it home. Standing there under the moonlight glow, your eyes are shining bright like a star I've come to know. I'm lost in the moment, caught in the spell you weave. Every little whisper makes me wanna believe. Gonna lean in close, whispering sweet love in your ear, sitting by your side, holding you near, right here, right now. I'm never letting go. Let me kiss your lips before the night moves slow. I don't wanna wait, don't wanna waste a single breath. Said, baby, you and I, let's make the most of this. Your hand in mine makes the world feel so right. We'll dance through the day and we'll talk all night. In every heartbeat I can feel the fire grow with you by my side. There's nowhere else I'd go. Gonna lean in close, whispering sweet love in your ear, sitting by your side, holding you near, right here, right now. I'm never letting go. Let me kiss your lips before the night moves slow. I don't wanna wait, don't wanna waste a single breath. Said, baby, you and I, let's make the most of this. the stars start to shine. But I can't stop thinking of you, girl, all the time. The moon's up above, and I'm here on my own, wishing you were with me here at home. I feel the cold wind blowing through the trees, but it don't match the chill I feel inside of me. I'm counting the hours till I can hold you tight and feel your love under the pale moonlight. Under the moonlight, I'm missing you so. I'm thinking about the love that we used to know. I can't sleep, can't breathe without you near. Girl, you're all I want, you're all I need here. Under the moonlight, I'm calling your name in the still of the night. It's always the same. I'm here alone, but I'm dreaming of you. Under the moonlight, I'm waiting for you. I remember the times we'd sit by the fire, talking about dreams, about all we desire. Your laughter, your smile, girl, they fill my heart. But now we're apart, and it's tearing me apart. I see your face in the shadows at night, and I feel your touch when the stars shine bright. But it ain't enough, I need you here to make everything right, to erase all the fear. Under the moonlight, I'm missing you so. I'm thinking about the love that we used to know. I can't sleep, can't breathe without you near. Girl, you're all I want, you're all I need here. Under the moonlight, I'm calling your name in the still of the night. It's always the same. I'm here alone, but I'm dreaming of you. Under the moonlight, I'm waiting for you. I know the night's dark, but the stars are still bright. And baby, I'm waiting for you to come into my life. We'll make our own way, we'll find our own light. Under the moon, I'll hold you tight. Under the moonlight, I'm missing you so. I'm thinking about the love that we used to know. I can't sleep, can't breathe without you near. Girl, you're all I want, you're all I need here. Under the moonlight, I'm calling your name in the still of the night. It's always the same. I'm here alone, but I'm dreaming of you. Under the moonlight.
It's the quiet after the storm, when the rain stops and the world's reborn. I see the light through the clouds above, and it's in your eyes I find my love. The little things that make life sweet, like walking down that old dirt street, where the sun's warm and the air's so clear. In your arms I feel no fear. It's the simple love that fills my soul like a quiet breeze me whole. It's the little moments, the ones we share. In the silence, I find you there. What once seemed far now feels so near. Your love's the calm, the peace I hold dear. It's the simple love that feels so right, the kind that shines through the darkest night. So here we are, just you and me, living the life that we were meant to be. In every rain, in every sun, in the simple love we are one.
Every dream starts with a spark, a fire deep inside. But the road is never easy, filled with trials we can't hide. Every step feels like a battle, every fall leaves scars behind. But I know that in the darkness there's a light I'm gonna find. The journey's long, the nights get cold. I've been bruised, but I won't fold. Through the pain, through the rain, I keep moving, I won't change. No road to glory comes without the fight. No mountains conquered in a single night. Through the thorns, through the main, I will rise, I'll break the chain. The crown ain't given, it's earned with time. Through blood and sweat, I claim what's mine. I won't stop, I won't fall, I was made to stand tall. I've walked through fire, felt the burn. I faced the darkest days, but every wound and every scar just means I found my way. They said give up, it's far too hard. They tried to pull me down, but I was never built to break. I wear my struggle like a crown. The journey's long, the nights get cold. I've been bruised, but I won't fold. Through the pain, through the rain, I keep moving, I won't change. No road to glory comes without the fight. No mountains conquered in a single night. Through the thorns, through the rain, I will rise, I'll break the chain. The crown ain't given, it's earned with time. Through blood and sweat, I claim what's mine. I won't stop, I won't fall, I was made to stand tall. Let the storms come crashing down. Let the fire burn the ground. I won't run, I won't hide. I'll keep climbing, step in stride. Pain's the price to chase the dream, and nothing's ever what it seems. But I'll bleed, I'll fight, I'll give my all. For victory, I'll never crawl. No road to glory comes without the fight. No mountains conquered in a single night. Through the thorns, through the pain, I will rise, I'll break the chain. The crown ain't given, it's earned with time. Through blood and sweat, I claim what's mine. I won't stop, I won't fall, I was made to stand tall. So when the dust has settled down and I am standing on the ground, I'll wear my scars with head held high. For every thorn I've touched the sky.
Standing in the rain, with the storm in my heart, I can still feel the warmth of when we were apart. Your smile and your touch, they still linger in my mind. But the past is a road that I can't leave behind. The tears mix with the rain, and I close my eyes. I hear your voice, but it's just a sweet disguise. Memories fade, but they never really go. Now it's time to let go and take it slow. But here comes the sun, shining through the clouds. the dark, but you showed me the way, like a gentle breeze that swept my doubts away. Your hand in mine and the world feels so right. I'm dancing through the storm, stepping into the light. I'll remember the past, but it won't hold me down. Your love lifts me up, takes me off the ground. With every step I'm walking toward the truth, that the love I need was always here with you. But here comes the sun, shining through the clouds, like a rainbow after the storm. It's you that I found. I'll forget the past, let go of the pain, 'cause you're the love I've been waiting for. You're the light in the rain. Oh, the heartache fades and I see it clear. With you by my side, there's nothing to fear. The past is behind me and love is anew. I found my forever and it's all thanks to you. But here comes the sun, shining through the clouds, like a rainbow after the storm. It's you that I found. I'll forget the past, let go of the pain, 'cause you're the love I've been waiting for. You're the light in the rain.
I've ridden roads from east to west, chased the sun, gave it my best. But every mile, every turn leads me back to where you burn. I don't need a house, don't need four walls, just your love when the nighttime calls. With your hand in mine, stars shining bright. Anywhere with you feels right. Home ain't a place, it ain't a town. It's wherever you are when the sun goes down. No matter the trail, no matter how far, home is wherever you are. Mountains high, rivers wide, nothing keeps me from your side. This cowboy's heart was meant to roam, but you're the place that feels like home. If the road ever pulls me away, know I'll be back come break of day. For love like ours, steady and true, there's no home without you. Home ain't a place, it ain't a town. It's wherever you are when the sun goes down. No matter the trail, no matter how far, home is wherever you are.
everything's right.